I'm Roger, and it's a cold, rainy March day out there, so working in the shop. And one of the things that I'm building here, you may have seen if you watched my video on the Dremel 4000 that I purchased. I also purchased the little router table that goes with it, Dremel model 231. What I intend to do is make a miniature router table. So I need a little bit bigger space here to work. So my intent is to build it around this DeWalt T-stack. It's got 2 drawers in it with dividers. That'll be a good place to put a lot of the bits and the different accessories that come with the Dremel in it, without them being in them little assorted plastic cases and getting scattered about. Everything will be in one place, and I'll probably make some customized holders inside these drawers. So I'll open one of these up. These drawers are removable, but you can see there's dividers in there and everything can be customized. I use these quite a bit in other places in the shop here to store drill bits and taps and dies and multi-tool blades and all kinds of things. They're real handy. They do stack, and I'm not sponsored by DeWalt here again. I bought these. These little clips here you see pop up, and you can put another one on there and they lock together. I've got a stack of 4 of them over here on the side by my toolbox that keep things in. But at any rate, I'm going to build this little router table above this, something like this. And in order to do that, some odd shapes on here, as you can see. One of the things they tell you can do is just use this flange on the back and bolt or screw it down to a 2x4 and then bolt that to your bench. Or you can make a table. This is kind of an odd dimension here. As I recall, it is not quite 3/8 and not quite 9 millimeters, just a little over 8 millimeters. So what I did first was made a cardboard template to make sure everything fit on there well, and then I used this to cut the plywood on the scroll saw. I did make a little modification here. I found I didn't need this full width up here. I just needed the slot, and that is where the little blade guard swings. I'm not a big fan of these, but I didn't want to take it off of there either. So, whoops. It's good heavy plastic. It's unbreakable. So what I have is some oddball Baltic birch plywood. And when I say oddball, it's because it is 11 millimeters thick. So as you can see here, I cut out that opening to make it fit flush. Then I had to, and it's not real neat, but this is on the bottom, nobody's going to see it. I had to route in just a little bit here so that when this is placed into the table, like so, everything is perfectly flush. So it's absolutely perfectly flush across there. I mean, well, that's the back. You're going to work back there anyway. Up here, everything's perfectly flush. There is a little indent here. I think you can see where it says Dremel, and I had thought about cutting that off so that I could just make a straight cut along here. Wouldn't have this little divot, which will probably catch sawdust. But after looking at how the table was made, I found that, or I figured if I did cut that off and machine that off of there, I would lose some of the structural content of the table because of the way that was molded. At any rate, this is the first step. I've got the table made, so next I need to calculate my height and cut my sides and build my table around this DeWalt T-stack. Okay, got busy here and put this thing together. Works out real nice. I've done a couple little test pieces on it just to see how it works. Picked out a couple little bugs which I'll point out as I zoom in on this and give you a closer look. Okay, first I'll give you a few dimensions on this. It's 20 inches tall, so it's obviously a little high for where I have it setting right now, but my intended place for this thing to live is going to be on one of my push carts, which is about a foot lower, and that puts it at just the right height. The same, like I said, it's 20 inches high, it's 18 inches wide, and it's 14 inches deep, in case you would decide to build one yourself. It's made out of pretty much all out of 1/2 inch B grade Baltic birch plywood. Got a deal on it. What B grade is there, like you see here, there are some knots in the veneer, but everything is nice and smooth. The back, I used a piece of 1/8 inch masonite hardboard, and I made a place to wind up the cord. I put a 25-foot cord on this. I had a scrap of a piano hinge, so I used that because the top is hinged. Spin this back around so that when you want to do something with this, adjust the height or maybe change your bits or whatever, you just pop the top up just like that. One thing I noticed after I started using this a little bit to make some test runs was when this is down like this, it's just a giant pain to reach in here and have to mess with the switch. So I had another one of these around, added one of these to the front of it. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I based this around a DeWalt T-Stack storage unit. So you can keep all your bits and pieces of sandpaper and sanding drums and tools and everything in one drawer. In this drawer here I have some of the accessories, and I have my little bitty router bits in here. So it's a good place to have everything all stored in one place. I added a shelf in here because I didn't want the dust to be accumulating on top of the T-Stack. And this is fastened in here. It's just a couple little screws down through the bottom into the base. It works out real well. The whole thing is, well, it's not real heavy. I would guess it's probably 35 pounds maybe with all the stuff in the drawers and all that. So I'll hook the cord up here and I'll run a little test piece on here and show you how well it works. Okay, what I have in here right now is a very small roundover bit. And what I like about this is, especially if you're working with small parts, say you've done some scrolling and you want to put a little roundover on maybe some little animals or something you cut out, or cut letters that have been cut out, or even fretwork. With a regular router table, it's very difficult to get in to those close spaces and route, because most of your router bearings, or I should say roundover bits, with the bearing on top, the bearing is so large it's not going to let you get into those little tight corners. The other thing you'll find out is if, for example, with an 1/8 inch roundover bit, if you have very thin plywood or very thin material such as this, it's hard to be able to get in and do that roundover without this coming off the bearing. The bearing will be too high. This does not have a bearing. It has a little bit of a rub shaft on the top so that you're able to get very close, and you do this on some thin material. This could also be let down a little more as well as being raised, and I have a whole set of 1/8 inch collet bits for this. I'll run a couple pieces through here and show you how it looks. That there is on, it's actually less than 1/4 inch plywood, but it makes a nice round over. This here is a piece of 1/2 inch cedar. Of course, it'll need a little bit of sanding because cedar is notorious for having a little bit of tear out, but this was pretty rough sawn cedar anyway. But it makes a nice little round over edge on it, and comes out real well. You'll notice I had the guard up. It's difficult for me anyway, from my past experience, to even have one. I did leave it on in case I'm doing something where I would utilize a fence. Power-wise, this little Dremel 4000 has plenty of power. I haven't had any problems with a couple different bits I've run through there. with a shortage of power or anything. I'm happy with the way this works. I think the hinge top makes it nice. It's handy to be able to work on things. This fence is adjustable. There's several holes, actually there's 3 holes, not several, on this side where you can bring the fence closer or farther away. And this side here loosens and it will pivot if I loosen up everything like I'm supposed to. There we go. And you can pivot it if you need to run through at an angle or something like that. If you're running something through where you need to make an offset, there's another piece back here that you can loosen the knob up on. I don't know if this is going to show up or not. Just zoom in a little better here. The small piece here is on a wedge. If you loosen this up, then this can be moved out if you need an offset on something. Let's say you're trying to do a small rabbit or something like that. You can do offsets with it. That's not a problem. That back in place. So overall, makes for a nice setup. Finish-wise, I'm probably going to put something on this. I haven't quite decided what yet. May do a polyurethane on it. I may just give it a rub down with some oil. Either way, I will be putting a coat or 2 or 3 or more of paste wax on the top to make my material slide easy. I did some small cutout animals on here using this little, it's almost a 1/16 inch round over, and it worked out real well. Of course, that was just on pine. I haven't tried it on any hardwoods yet, but even with that little piece of plywood, it worked out well. So if you're interested in making something like this, said it's 20 inches high, it's 18 inches wide, it's 14 inches deep, build around a 2-drawer T-stack and the Dremel router table. Of course, I'm using the Dremel 4000 multi-tool on it, and it works out well. As I mentioned before, I had no problems with power. The only thing I have noticed, though, is when you are putting in the router bits, you need to really get them down in there, or you'll end up with too much protruding above the table. I have this almost maxed out as far as how low I can adjust this. Height-wise, I haven't had any problem there. I've also played with a couple of the little sanding drums in it. And if you need a really, really small spindle sander, way smaller than what my Triton is, this will do the job. I did a little bit of detail work on some fretwork I made as a gift for someone, and it worked out real well for that. So, if you got something out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Of course, we're always looking for subscribers. But until then, see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.